Welcome to the WASH Academia series. My name is Vicky Idoko Pope. I am the head of VIPCG. VIPCG is an institution and organization development consulting firm currently based in Abuja. We have been involved in the WASH sector reforms in Nigeria since 2012, and we are looking at every angle to fast track the achievements of the WASH sector reforms in Nigeria and beyond. So we put together the WASH Academia series. The WASH Academia series is targeted at developing the capacity of the WASH sector so that the sector is better able to achieve real results from the reforms. The series meets every other Thursday at 11 o'clock on Zoom, and we tackle different topics that are hindering the performance of the sector reforms. Today, I will be speaking about addressing the political will in terms of how it is hindering the absence or presence of the political will, in terms of how it is hindering the implementation of the reforms. My name is Vicky Idoko Pope. I am an institution and organization development consultant. I have been working in this as an independent consultant for 25 years. I have a master's degree in organization development from the American University. I also am a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultant and a fellow of the Organization Development Network. I have several certifications, but I'm not going to bore you with that. But I've been in the sector reforms in Nigeria for more than 10 years, and I'm hoping that I can do justice to this. Please bear with me as we now go into the presentation. Thank you for watching. Prior to now, you know that the reforms had focused on the water utilities themselves and water supply, and now that we're beginning to delve into sanitation, I have begun to shift my focus to what is it that is impeding performance at this point. And one of the key areas that we saw from most of our consulting has the issue of political will. And as we know in the sector, we tend to look at, when you ask someone, why is it that this project is not being, why is there no sustainability, why are we having issues? We tend to go straight to, well, we didn't get the approval for this, or we didn't get the support for that. So last year, we did do a session on political will. It was very brief, but today we are going to go a little deeper to look at how political will really, what is it, and how it is affecting the sector as a whole. And we are going to be looking at what is it specifically that can be done, that can, from here on, that will make things to change. Right now, my opinion is that we are doing political will totally wrong. And I am going to try to showcase how we're doing it now and how I think we should be doing it. And I truly, truly welcome your contributions, because as much as I may know, I don't know everything. In fact, I don't know half of everything. So everyone's contribution really is totally needed. So the biggest threat to the effectiveness of the reforms is political will. And what I have seen is that where the impact of the political will has come in has not been in planning or even sourcing the resources, but actually in implementation. And so we have issues with implementation where the results that we are getting is not what we set out to get in the first place. And sometimes it appears that the energy has gone out of the reform projects that we are running because of lack of political will. So it is the reason that we are going to be talking about the political will, so that we can lessen the threat that the lack of political will is having on the reforms that we are trying to implement. So that said, so in this presentation, very quickly, we're going to introduce political will, and then we're going to explore, once we know what political will is, then we're going to explore the absence of political will in the sector and its impact. And we will find ways to address the issue of lack of political will. And then we summarize and conclude. Between all of that, we will have discussions and we will have input from everyone that is present. So in the introduction, I looked up several definitions, and I came up with, I pulled out two, and I'm going to share the sources with you when you get the presentation. That political will is the ability and determination of a political actor to do whatever is needed to produce a desired outcome in furtherance of his or her political agenda. And someone else defined it as the courage and commitment to carry through an initiative or policy in furtherance of a reform agenda. These are the two definitions that I thought spoke to our sector. You will see the words ability and determination, and you will see the words courage and commitment. The one thing that stood out for me is a political agenda. So you see that both of them also have agenda. What stands out for me in this too is the fact that there needs to be an agenda, and then there needs to be a determination and courage and commitment and ability to bring that agenda to life. So I looked at that and I thought, okay, so a determination, but there needs to be a willingness and ability to solve a pressing problem, in any political will. So, and we know that we have a pressing problem, right, in the wash sector. People are not getting good quality water, not in the quantity that can impact our life expectancy, and our sanitation issues are huge. So that is, when you look at this, you see that we really do have an impending development issue. But there has to be a determination on the part of political actors and a willingness to tackle this problem that we have. And that determination needs to show up in a political agenda that they have. So for us to even get to this point where we have a political agenda, it cannot come from other sources other than the political actors that we have, either at the federal level or at the state level. I want to give you, to provide an example of what a political will has done elsewhere. All developmental achievements, all advancements in any society comes through the political will of political office holders. So I'll give you an example of the COVID situation in the US. The change in government in the US the last 2 years, one of the key issues was the COVID. And so the Biden administration came into power with a clear agenda on the COVID. They knew it was going to take resources, and they knew they were coming in on the back of the culture that Trump had put in place, which was totally, in my opinion, which was working against trying to eliminate or tame the COVID infections and the raging death rate that was coming from it. So what the Biden administration did was to, first of all, have an agenda. And when they had an agenda, they put together a team that was going to champion and carry through this agenda. And this team then developed a plan and a strategy for implementing that plan. The plan then was sent to Congress for approval, because without that, they wouldn't get the resources or the leg to work on. So thankfully, the Congress was being controlled by the Democrats, and with a little bit of looking here and there, they approved the plan. And so the Biden administration then went into implementation wholeheartedly on the plan without looking back. And what we can say is that the advancements in taming COVID, even with all the new manifestations of COVID that came out, the reduction in the infection rates, the reduction in the death rates, the more people started to follow the COVID protocol, and all of that came from following the agenda, having a clear agenda and pursuing that agenda to a T. And as COVID would change its advancements and morph into new variants, the agenda remained the same. Tame COVID. Do whatever we need to do to tame COVID, because otherwise it will kill the rest of the sectors. And so what we saw through that was that what I saw through that was that there is an agenda, and that ruled what they were going to do. And from the president, there was a clear communication of the agenda so that everyone understood that this is where we are headed. And he set up a team very quickly to take on the mantle, because every leader has to have someone or a group of people that must make the agenda come alive. Then the team developed a plan and a budget to run that plan. And the president still led the efforts to ensure resources are made available. He walked across the aisle. He gained support from the Republicans in the House, not everybody, but he gained most of the support. And he became the face of the agenda by what he did, what he said or not do. So you always saw him, even when he had the social distancing with his followers or with the people he was working with, you always saw him with a mask on. You always saw him washing hands, doing social distancing, encouraging people to listen to science and all of that. And then he communicated the achievements and the work before them. So every time there was gains, this many people have been tested. We have distributed palliatives and all of that. And he would also say, when the vaccines came in, how many people had taken the vaccines, and there were still communications for more people to take vaccines. As at last month, they had made it now that you could get COVID packages of COVID tests, even delivered to your house. There is a centralized database of all those who are being tested, so that employers could go see if their employees have been tested. They encouraged states to adopt most of the federal agenda, so that the states could then adopt it for their states and all of that. And so what he did in order to begin to achieve on that agenda is very clear, and we can see it from the achievements that they have gotten. What became clear to me from looking at how they took this on is the fact that they didn't focus on, it wasn't a funder that came in and said, we need to focus on COVID. It was a group of politicians led by Joe Biden that came in, seeing this challenge that they had, and then developing that agenda and a plan to tackle that challenge. So getting the funding was a part of making resources available to achieve to solve the problem of COVID in the US. So this is the point where let's have a quick discussion here. Based on the definitions and the example that I just gave about the way that Joe Biden and his people tackled COVID, what have you experienced in terms of the presence or absence of political will in the sector, either in Nigeria as a whole or as
So,
Hello, everyone.
Yes, hi.
Good afternoon or good morning, whichever one. From what you have said, the convener is as if, from your example, it's as if the president was on the driver's seat to drive the challenges of reform and how they were able to overcome. But what I see in Nigeria is that it's not the leader, in quotes, the leader, maybe the governor or the president that are not on the driver's seat, or that or that the head of agencies have not communicated with them. But the challenge we have is these intermediaries. You have some agencies, you have commissioners supervising them, you have chairman of the board, you have board in place. All these people, they have different interests, different from that of the leader who is championing the cause. In our state, then, we made the governor the leader of the champions in the water sector. The World Bank representative was on ground to tell him that and to discuss with him what reform is all about and where they expect the state, how they expect the state to drive the reform. And he was aware. And the commissioner was there. But along the line, because of the hidden agenda, which is also known to the convener, this convener, Mrs. Idoko Popo, I'm sorry for referring to you, you were fully aware of what we went through in Ekiti. So it was not as if, but over there in the US, money is not paramount. Self-interest is not the topmost. Their interest is their people. Their interest is what is the impact of whatever they are doing on the communities. But in the opposite is nearly the case in Nigeria. Even when the leader, the governor, the president is driving, after all, it was the president in this country that declared state of emergency in the water sector. The governor in the state also declared the same thing. It means they actually understood what we were doing, and we were carrying them along, and they were flowing. But they would not be able to come down to the level of either commissioner or chairman. And at a stage, what I saw when I was in service is that if the head of the agency is not privileged to have direct contact with the governor, then there'll be problem. Because when you go through all these political appointees, because of their interest, what they agree with you that they are going to inform or carry the headship along, they will not do that when they get there. I was only lucky in my own case that I was privileged to be talking to Mr. Governor. So whenever you tell him anything, by the time I get to him, I had the opportunity to explain to him and then to convince him. But at a stage where the transition committee was also set up and a commissioner was made to act because of his own interest, which overrides any other interest or the success or progress of that agency. He was already looking for ways, smart way, to make the agency, he used a word for the agency that he wants to unbundle. So he was already looking for a way to unbundle the agency, stretch the agency, and then begin to say, this company should come and take over this area, this company should take over this zone. When the idea, the initial, was to gradually turn the government-owned agency to a company through a period of 3 or 5 years. So these are the challenges in Nigeria, that because of all these intermediaries, that most of the water agency heads, they have no opportunity of also meeting the governor. All these political intermediaries, you will see, they will frustrate their efforts. So by the time another thing that's also the problem in Nigeria is money. When the issue of funding comes up, giving priority to the water sector, they can say it in verbally, they can document, but when it comes to implementation,
Please,
hello.
mute
So
your mic, please. Somebody mute your mic.
You will discover it's the road infrastructure that will take precedence. In the letter, in writing, they can tell you that yes, this is the water utility or provision of water is taking priority. Yes, but when it comes to implementation, you find out all over the country, that one is not peculiar to my state. All over the country, the interest in road infrastructure we surpass that of part of the water sector. So until I keep on saying something, I appreciate the efforts of the minister, but he also needs to do more. Because of this election, you see changes, batting, changes in hand. The federal will still need to do more. Anytime any government is there, they should continue to educate them, tell them to call the head of the agency directly, not all these commissioners now, to say, what is your problem? Where are we expected to be? What can we do to get this thing done? I think with this, if they endear themselves with the head of these utilities, it will also help our situation. But the challenge we have is that in most cases, even all these house members, all this is what they want to take home, that their interest is higher than what are they giving back to the community. But verbally, when they are addressing the press, they will encourage you and tell you, yes, we are doing this, we are doing that. Well, that's what we intend to do. But when it comes to actual implementation, you will see otherwise playing. The Lord will help the country. We have started well. Let us don't be discouraged. Let us continue to press more. This thing you are putting together is so good, educative, and then later on we begin to see how it begins to manifest in each of our states. The Lord will help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Agbeo. Thank you so much. Mrs. Agbeo is the last GM, the former GM of Ekiti State Water Corporation. She's been involved in the water sector reforms from the get-go. Thank you. So her contributions are highly relevant. Thank you, Mr. Okay, very who's next? We'll take like 3
Tommy,
and
I think Engineer Tommy will speak. And I would like, please, can you just summarize your comments and inputs within 30 seconds so we can allow other people to also
Yeah,
talk.
because we'll be talking throughout the whole thing.
Wonderful.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Story. And let me say good morning and happy new month to us all.
Yes.
In my opinion, from my experiences, yes, it's about interest and objective. And we should also bear in mind that water is seen as a social, economic, and a political goods. In the sense that I'm sure that everybody will agree with me that it's the interest or objective of any political office holder to see to the improvement in the welfare of its citizens or its followers.
Mhm.
But we as professionals, we have to be candid and sincere to ourselves. Mrs. Idoko can talk about this. She did the borrower's implementation report on the first national urban water sector reform project. She knows what lessons were learned, what gaps were seen, and she can say what is the outcome of that intervention. A whole lot of money was sunk into it. And we as professionals has to really be on our toes because population is expanding. Financial resource is a finite resource because with so many pressing needs. And most governments would not want to put money into somewhere where that is going to become like a drain. You keep putting in money here, you keep putting money here, and you're not getting much result for it. It's a fact in the sector that we have to look into. Yes, Mrs. Idoko talked about America. I am very sure that we all know that water in America is an economic good. It is an economic good. In Nigeria, yes, I would say, in my opinion, it is a quasi social or quasi-economic because it's not fully social because governments are collecting tariffs. It's not fully economic because the tariffs are being collected. It's not enough to cover cost of operation or delivering these waters, not to talk of maintaining the equipment. So which means the leaning on dependence on government will be on for long. It is not so in America. Not to waste time, what I'm trying to say that yes, in terms of political will, I will say challenges are not so much, but we as operators need to restore confidence in the sector so that people can believe in us that yes, this sector is not a leaking or is not a conduit pipe to waste limited resources of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Barry, who's next?
Simon, Mr.
Hello.
Simeon. Mr. Simeon.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Simeon, the Deputy Chief of Party, Partners for Development, Water Improvement and Sanitation Enhancement Project in Kano and Jigawa. I have been in this sector for over 12 years. And the question posed before us is whether government of Nigeria has that political will. I would say yes, and I would say no. Yes, for the willingness to do it, no for the commitment to do it. Experience has shown that a lot is on paper, a lot has been declared on social and media houses and all that, but it's not translated down to the agencies that are responsible for making water a priority in the states, both urban and rural. Good to know that all the agencies in charge of water, both urban and rural, are willing. They have all the capacity that is required, or persons that are required to handle this. But our government is yet to make tangible commitment for water and sanitation access. Recently, I will not mention a state, I went to have a pilot, and meeting with the commissioner and the permanent secretary, Minister of Water Resources, I made a presentation and he said, the question I want to ask is, does that project, that pilot, require a counterpart funding or counterpart contribution? I said, not really at this point, in financial terms, but it requires counterpart contribution from the in-kind. That's your staff will be available. He said, thank God, if it's finance, it would have been dead on arrival. And I said, oh, if it's finance, it's dead on arrival, but that means water is not a priority for this area. And why would you ask a question where you have the personnel ready to do the work and you feel that water providing funds is not a priority? Another state again that I went to, if you go to the state Rwasa, you will see new rigs up to 5 with every other thing. And I wanted to know why, because we did some work with them for over 2 years and discovered that the GM for Rwasa became a permanent secretary, and the governor said the GM should continue to man Rwasa and to be the permanent secretary. An intervention happened by UNICEF, and this state scaled up. UNICEF intervened in 10, they scaled up to 20. And it shows some level of commitment. So in Nigeria, it depends on which zone, which area, and the interest of the persons in government at a particular point in time. For the project, we are currently as Partners for Development implementing in Kano and Jigawa, which is funded by USAID. If you meet the Rwasa, you will work from morning till night without stopping because of the commitment the team has. The GM, the MD, they are always there. The people, the staff are always there. It tells me that these agencies are willing to work. They need a push, either internal or external, from those that supervise them. And so for us who are professionals in this sector, should not be tired, should not give up hope. We need to catalyze the government by doing the little we can and complementing what they are doing, and also help them to look at these things as priorities, or to look at these things as their primary responsibility to provide water, sanitation, and improve hygiene for the people. So far, so good. Kano State, Rwasa, Kano State government, Jigawa State, Rwasa, and Jigawa State government are not doing badly in terms of this sector. Recently, they just signed, they are working towards the whole LGA in Jigawa to be ODF. And so there's about out of how many local governments, only 2 that don't have intervention of government or donors fully. And so it tells that every community you go to, at least you see a hand pump. And if they push it further by having that sanitation, I think we'll be there. We are not yet there. For political will, we can't be counting 2, 5, 10 states out of 36 plus FCT. For those of us in Abuja here, we know what the issues are. Yeah. You can't see water in Abuja without individual boreholes that are working for people. And so it means that we are still not there, even in Sadon. The political will is still low. Thank you. That's my contribution.
Thank you so much. We'll take one more and then we'll continue with the presentation. That will be opportunities to talk as we continue, okay?
Yeah.
So be patient.
Can I speak?
Barry, who's speaking?
Yeah, Mr. Dubagari.
Hello.
Speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hello.
there you are. Yes,
hello,
sir.
good morning, everyone. I am Dubagari Abisabo. I'm the president of Nigerian Water Supply Association. And we have been on the project, the EWASH program, and we are just rounding out the program now. I'll speak from the viewpoint of the president of Nigerian Water Supply Association and some of the experience I have. Actually, in Nigeria, a lot of we can say there's government commitment as far as paperwork is concerned. But when it comes to actual commitment in terms of Naira and Kobo, that is where the problem lies. Many of the state governments see the water sector as being problematic in terms of what resources they require. We require so much resources that those in power in various states look at the water board as a sort of drain that they begin to throw money into that system, but nothing is coming out. And so a lot of the time, once there is a project, an announcement that there's going to be a project, there's a rush. All the states will run there. They want to get a piece of the money that is available so that you bring it to their state. But when it comes to what are the terms on ground that you need, what are the milestones that you need to achieve in order to attract some of those interventions. Now you see some of the states dragging their feet. I have the experience of even the project that we just concluded, or we are concluding now, where we started with 6 states, and along the way, some of the states had to drag their feet because the commitment was not actually to serve the people with water, but in order to just to attract the funding, which becomes the main priority. So I feel that what we need to do is let there be proper understanding that it is not the resources. If you look at some of the states in this country, they have enjoyed 3, 4, 5 interventions. And yet, once they finish, the program starts, and once the donor withdraws, they go back to the original state because the political will that is required to sustain it is not actually available. Because we need political will that is sustainable, not just for a particular period during the project. And that is what we are seeing in this country. So we need to have better political will. And secondly, I remember the issue of when you were introducing this topic, talk about the importance of agenda. Now, once the president or the governor is on the driver's seat, now he has to develop a very strong agenda. And in the agenda, all the issues that are likely to arise have to be thought out and included in it, because when the governor is on the driving seat and the commissioner or the chairman or board members will have the opportunity of diverting the original cost, then there is a problem. So the agenda has to be properly packaged in such a way that once the governor is, he properly packages it and he's on the driving seat, there has to be a way of check along the way, because evaluation of the program has to be continuous, and to see if there are issues, they have to be corrected. So, for example, if the governor in the agenda has a way of getting feedback, let's say bi-weekly, on a bi-weekly basis, he asks questions, then he will be able to get proper input from what is going on, because it's a bit distant from the agency that are implementing. But if he has a way in the package agenda such that there is continuous feedback, I think he will be able to drive the program successfully to the end. So that is my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are going to continue with the presentation, and we will go back again and start talking. So please don't leave. And you know, we are going to continue the presentation. We were just dealing with the question of what we have seen, and I'm sure there's so much more that we can share. Okay, so we will continue, and we will come back and discuss this somewhat more. So we need to bear in mind that political will comes from a political actors wash agenda, like we've been talking about, and a commitment to achieve the outcomes that are in furtherance of that agenda. So when there is no agenda, it is difficult for us to be able to get political commitment. And the point at which we get the political agenda is not when the government has gone halfway or whatever. It has to be there at the beginning of the tenure. Now they're about to go into the campaigns. There are people who are going to become governors of the states. We need to start asking them, what are you going to do about WASH services in your state? So they too need to, when they do their, this is their, their manifesto, when they are presenting their manifesto, let the agenda, the WASH agenda, be part of this manifesto. And those of us that have access to them, we need to start emphasizing to the political structure that there needs to be a WASH agenda for each state. Right now, we're doing it upside down, you know, sort of when, you know, halfway through, when there's some money or when there's some federal government program on WASH, and then the states sort of start to scurry to try to have an agenda. So it's important that we need that political will can only arise, the true political will can only arise if there is a political actors WASH agenda. Okay, so we've been talking about political actors, so I think it's important that we actually begin to look at who is a political actor. At the federal level, there are political actors, right? So we know there's the president of the country and then there's the minister. So the minister is there to run the political agenda of the president, you know, who hopefully would have had his own plan or her own plan when we get a female president, when they are coming into power, and that they will, you know, like Joe Biden did, they will choose a team that can focus on that agenda. We've had so many discussions and we've had many things coming from the federal level. And ideally what would happen is that whatever is the federal level agenda is then basically adopted by the state and modified to fit the state's individual circumstances. And so at the state level, it is the governor that is being elected or that is taking on the next regime that must have the agenda. And then, of course, at the local government level, because, you know, that's our own lowest, our smallest unit of governance that we have in our democracy. And in this case, he's the local government chairman, and we know what happens at the local government level. So when you start looking from the federal level, passing through the state to the local government level, you can already see where there would be issues with getting an agenda and getting a concerted effort towards WASH. So, but for this, for today, we're not going to focus at the federal level. We're going to focus at the state and local government levels, the actors at the state and local government levels. We're going to look at their influences, and we're going to look at what happens when there is lack of political will at the state and local government levels. So the political actors, like I said, are the governor at the state level, the supervising commissioner, you know, which is the ministry that is in charge of WASH, and the House Committee on WASH, as well as the local government chairman. So these are the three actors that I see. There are organizations that support these people in pursuing an agenda or making sure that they are pursuing an agenda. And this like our CSO, Okay, so let's mute our mics, please. This would be like our CSOs and the funding community, and and as well as even those from the federal level. So in looking at our political actors, one of the things that I want us to be mindful of is what our political actors do is much more important than what they say in Nigeria. The reason is that oftentimes actions are not backing up what political actors say. And so we have situations where they're going to give water to everybody, and and they understand what is needed and all of that, and then we don't get nothing. So from the governor's perspective, what we see is, as the governor of the state, what does the governor do? His influence is making sure, once there's an agenda, is making sure that there's an appropriate policy and plan to back up that agenda. Hang on. And then that when the time comes, there will be budget allocations for the projects that they are trying to do, because without resources, we can't do anything. But right now, instead of making sure that there are allocations, because of the priority that they have for WASH, they tend to have money for other things. And then when it comes to WASH, like we've been hearing, there's no money unless there is some funding from the international community, or from the NGOs working in the WASH sector, and they are required to come up with the counterpart funding before they start working to do this. So resource availability to develop the capacity to even implement is a real issue. And then if they really have an agenda, if the governor really has an agenda, he must incentivize reform initiatives, which means the agencies that are involved, what they are doing to do reforms, or what they are doing to help with his agenda should be rewarded for their efforts. But our governors, what we are seeing right now is, maybe because of the track record that we've had up until now, do tend to see the WASH sector still as a burden that they push to the funding community when they come in. I will hope that the federal government, because the federal government has to subscribe to the development objectives that are coming from the UN and other bodies, that they push these responsibilities to them. The next one is the commissioner. The commissioner really is not the program, is not the agenda developer, but once there's an agenda and there's the decision to work on the agenda, it is the role of the commissioner is to provide oversight and ensuring that the appropriate policy and master plans are in place by contributing technical knowledge to the development of this master plan. And that there is an appropriate investment plan, again, because funding the master plan or funding the agenda is going to come from some kind of investment plan. It's going to come from investments that will be needed to run the plan that is in place. And then, of course, usually in the states, when there's a preparation of budgets is usually from the grounds up. So the agencies, the MDAs will provide their budgets, and then each ministry will turn it in to the governor, who will then turn into the House, who will then have to approve the budget. So what has to happen is that the commissioner should be involved to make sure that the budget for his ministry is catering to what is needed to run the agenda. And then, of course, interceding with the governor's office and other MDAs who are involved, who will impact programs, WASH programs in the state. And then finally, with the funding partners, because the commissioner knows what the agenda is, he knows what the master plan is, what the policy is, what the money that is needed from the investment plan, he's able to intercede and to bring in the funding partners to be able to become their support in delivering the project. By doing all of this, the commissioner is then doing his part, his or her part, in the political will, even from the planning stage to when there is implementation, he knows what is going on and how he can support. The House Committee on WASH, and because in the last 2 years is when we started talking about WASH. If not, it used to just be water. The House Committee must support the governor in the pursuit of the WASH agenda. So having said that, what the House Committee must do is that they must facilitate, hang on, I have lost my thing. I had to go back. So what the House Committee must do, must facilitate appropriate laws to back up the policy from which the agenda will be run. And then they must facilitate the budget allocation for the projects that are put down. What we have seen sometimes is that the House Committee would see, instead of them being the supporters and the facilitators of the budget, they would constitute themselves the police. They see themselves as working for the main house more than working for and championing the WASH programs of the government. And they must facilitate, again, they must participate in oversight and implementation in alignment with the commissioner, not against the commissioner. They cannot become the police of the commissioner. And then, of course, they also must participate in interceding with the funding partners. So we have to work to get the House Committee to work on our on behalf of the governor's agenda, and everybody. So the House Committee, the commissioner, and the governor must be working together. The agency, the State Water Agency, for example, or the RUASA, for example, they are all just the implementing arms, but in terms of putting the heavyweight behind the WASH project, making it work, we need an alignment between the governor's intent, the commissioner's actions, the House Committee's actions, so that the projects can come alive. In the local government, if our local governments were working well, they too would have local government budgets for WASH. And so budget allocation should also be there in terms of them working to make sure that implementation happens, working with the funding agencies to make sure that whatever resources are within their purview are available for implementation, and making sure that they even develop capacity for implementation is also should be there. What we have seen with funding that has come in to help us implement projects in furtherance of the agenda, what we have seen is that a lot of that funding has to go into developing the capacity of the state apparatus or the local government apparatus to implement the projects. So we need to begin to take charge of our own capacity. We, meaning the governor's office, the commissioner, the House Committee, even the governor's special assistant. We all have to really focus to make sure we have resources to develop our own capacity that will allow us to have the commitment and to begin to pursue an implementation of an agenda, so that the funding community can come aid us in actually putting their money behind the actual projects to make the projects work. So on that note, I want us to look at the absence of political will. How do we know there is an absence of political will? And what I have done is pulled out for each one of those political actors what it looks like. So from the governor's, perspective, right away from the state level, you see that there's no clear WASH agenda. If you were to go to the governor's office and say, okay, what is the WASH agenda? They don't have. They're waiting to hear that there is something. In fact, we got to deal with the mics, please. So from the get-go, we have to already, there's no clear agenda. And once there's no agenda, it means that anything goes, right? So there is no commitment to actions that will yield any kind of sustainability in the projects that are being implemented. So you already have an absence of an agenda. And then there are projects that are brought in because the funding community comes and say, we want to do X, Y, Z. And then, the governor himself will come in only if, instead of taking the charge, oh, you are coming to do this in my state, and I'm taking the lead, even though I didn't have an agenda, but I know that this is good for my state. I will say what needs to be said. I will do what needs to be done. I will find the resources to then get going. We don't have that. And so, and I'm going to talk about rhetoric later on down the line. There isn't a singular focus on access and service provision. So there isn't like, okay, let us focus on, we need to give access to WASH services to our people. And we need to focus on making sure that we extend, don't worry, you're going to get the presentation. You don't need to take shots. I see you taking your camera out, leave the camera. We're going to share the recording, and we're also going to share the presentation. So, just listen so you can participate. So they are not being able to really focus on, even from the resources that we have. Every state, for example, in the urban areas, there is a water board or water corporation, whatever we're calling it, that is one. And they have already have some water mains, and we know that there are no public toilets within even the municipality. If the government will start out just focusing on those to use what they have already, the funding community will come in knowing that there is some level of political will, but what they really need is support in terms of making more resources available or providing the technical know-how to consolidate what the state is already doing and to expand. Then the policy and master plan do not reflect the political agenda or the political focus on service provision. And we know that when the World Bank or the AFDB comes in and they say, okay, you need to have a master plan or you need a policy, and then there's a hurried process, the consultant comes in and develops a policy and a master plan. And because of the way it is coming, when you develop something that is outside of the government and they just sign off on it, real commitment is difficult to have. And one of the big things that we have seen is the empty rhetoric. The rhetoric from the governor's office to whomever, whenever, just to get the money to come in, and we know it's rhetoric because what is said is not followed by what is done, So you will see a lot of rhetoric when you listen to the governor. It sounds like everybody by tomorrow will have water, or there will be a toilet or refuse collection, or there will be a treatment facility before the 4 years is up. But then, the years roll by and nothing. And we've seen that. I know you guys have seen it too. And we heard from someone who was speaking earlier, the chief of party who was talking to us about what he saw going from state to state. Then there is a total lack of trust in the capacity of the heads of relevant institutions or organizations that are involved in the wash sector. And trust, really, trust in the capacity is knowing that the heads of these institutions can actually make things happen. If you have an agenda to provide water, at least in the urban areas, trust in the capacity of the heads of these institutions to provide these services, if only you can make the resources available for them. And if you have, as a governor, if you have a head of a water utility, for example, that you don't believe can deliver on these services, then it's your job to find the one that can. So, and that goes for even the commissioner for water and all of that. Oftentimes we know that the commissioners are political appointees and they have their shenanigans that they work through in the background before they put these people in place. But please work, if you're a governor, work to make sure you have capable hands in charge of your ministries, in charge of your, in charge of the water utilities, or even RUASA and all of that. Make sure you have capable hands so that what you'll be worrying about is financial resources and technical know-how and other materials that is needed to deliver on your agenda. You are not enabling, the governors often are not enabling the relevant institutions to act in favor of their agenda. When you want to give water to people, and I'm going to be naming a state, back in, when we did some work for Ebonyi, and RUASA was dealing with, RUASA was trying to reform the state water agency. And if you've been to Abakaliki, you will know that the water that you get from the water board at that time was very heavy water. You could tell that the quality of water was very poor. And even the boreholes there failed. And the government had, the state government had gone off and built this beautiful, huge water treatment facility called in Okperekpe. And it really, when you would go there, and I remember it was being touted as, oh, this, we could supply water to, we have capacity to supply water to even 3 states, which I thought I was totally impressed. And then come to the water board or the water corporation, and all their the main pipelines were all behind there because the governor has also taken loans from the World Bank to do roads, and they had uprooted all the main pipelines. So now you have a water treatment plant that cannot transport water to the people where it is needed. And so you are not enabling the institution or the organization that can deliver on this water on the basis of which you did this water treatment plant by now not making sure that there's an alignment with your other development projects that you are doing with the water utility. Can we mute our microphone, please? Thank you. And then there are strategies. Of course, when you have an agenda, there's going to be strategies for changing your organizations that you have now, or plans for changing what you have now. And there has to be strategies for working with the formal and informal political structure. I spoke earlier about the whole Biden administration having to work across the aisle with the Republicans to make sure that they signed off on the approach to dealing with the COVID. That is, that's the formal political structure, where you have your house and all of that. But there's the informal political structure of who they're all the politicians, they know each other. And they, in Nigeria, with all the our processes of cross-carpeting, sometimes your opponent is actually was your colleague in your former political parties. And so working with these people to make sure that they make resources available for your wash project and all of that, when the governor himself is not even making moves with the formal structure, and the informal structure is where you can really make things happen quickly. So he's then not doing that. And that's so much more, but I'm going to go on to the commissioner. The commissioners often are not knowledgeable about the WASH agenda or what it will take to bring the WASH agenda to fruition. And they seem to only get energized when suddenly now there are projects coming from outside, which are coming from development agencies or from the aid agencies who see the need that is there. And they don't, because they're not even knowledgeable about the agenda, or they are not even in alignment with advancing the governor's intentions vis-a-vis the policy or the agenda and all of that. And then once there is actual projects going on, we found so many commissioners who join in, you heard Mrs. Agbero, who then join in micromanaging the reforms or micromanaging the institutions that are directly involved in the reforms, such that they're now, suddenly trying to make things happen in an area where they don't have the context to walk in. And then many of the commissioners are not aware that there's a thin line between oversight and supervision. And you can cross very quickly into supervision. And then when they do that crossing, then suddenly they are not able to be working as if they are the evangelists of what is happening in the sector anymore. They have now become the policemen of what is happening, and it's usually coming from the inflow of resources through the development projects. And there is oversight that they are supposed to provide for implementation of strategies that was supposed to change what is happening in the sector, but then they don't do that. They are supervising and micromanaging. They are not intimating the governor about the lack of resources. If anything, they go and hear from the governor, and then they come in and they are trying to now move the implementation forward on their own, overstepping their bounds. And then the last one, which we have to say, we're all Nigerians here, right? They're almost everywhere that have been, there is outright corrupt financial and procurement practices. And sometimes it comes from the governor's office, sometimes it comes from the commissioner's office, from the State House office, and even the special advisor's office. And because of this, we already, once we are in this place, we are already impeding any kind of successful implementation or successful change in the WASH sector. Then, we all know that if you worked on this things, with something that with even at the federal level, it exists. Corruption, the financial and procurement corruption is a Nigerian problem. And the WASH sector is not exempted. But we need to call it for what it is so that we know that it is there and that it is impacting results achievement. There is also, for the House Committee, there is a lack of support for the governor's WASH agenda. They tend to think that they are supposed to be debating whether to allow this agenda to come in or to even make it happen. Then there is a lack of alignment of oversight action. So they are doing their own oversight, and it's different from what the commissioner is doing. So then at the state level, the agency level, or the implementation level, you find yourself then dealing with the commissioner and dealing with the House and dealing with the CSOs and all of that. and it becomes a distraction rather than a helping a situation. And they too, I've talked about the corrupt financial and procurement practices, and they jump on the bandwagon of the rhetoric as well. At the local government level, the local government chairman must educate himself in terms of what is happening in terms of the WASH agenda and how that plays out at the local government level. And they must also have a singular focus on access and provision of services. What we tend to see is that the local government chairman, who usually has been selected by the political party, and who is usually selected because the governor says so, even though he's there, the governor should make some effort to select capable local government chairman who would be able to run his agenda instead of running just the agenda of the political party. And so if they know what we need in the WASH sector, they would come in supporting RWASA. They will come in supporting all the other players in the field who are trying to get services to our people. And so, they, instead of fighting at the state level to make sure that there's a budget for, even with their local government, the local government job budget makes provisions for WASH, we don't often have that. And of course, there's funding, there's aid funding that is grants and so on that is out there. We don't see our local government chairman going out hunting down these funds to come into our states. Instead, the funders are the ones chasing the local governments where they think there's a need based on information that is either in the grapevine or some reports that they have seen, or based on their own agenda that they're running for Nigeria or for the particular state. But the local governments must also make themselves advocates for their state. They cannot be influencing contract issuance. And we know that this happens. So boreholes are going to be sunk, and suddenly your local government chairman is wanting for you to be the ones to say, so let me know who's coming. Is it, how many am I getting, and that kind of thing. We know that that happens also. There is the head of RWASA who has to work with the funding partners. Most of the RWASA projects are being funded through aid money, through grants and that kind of thing. And so they have to work with these aid companies or organizations, that NGOs coming in. But then the local government chairman would often see the head of RWASA as not, they're not loyal. And being loyal in Nigeria means you're working under me. And he's the one that doesn't have even the knowledge of how to work with the funders and all of that. And so oftentimes the RWASA people have to work to go and find their own funding to develop their own capacity. If that was political will, the local government would make money available for them to develop their own capacity and make materials available for them to do their work. And they will provide technical support to RWASA by providing professional consultants or professional organizations that can help RWASA to deliver the services that they have, instead of leaving RWASA to fend for itself. So now we'll come to that question. I know there's a lot of comments. So we're back to discussing about what other ways have we seen lack of political will indicated in our states. I know we had a lot of hands up. This is the time to now put up your hands and let's talk about it. Ebere. Wait, no, the other way. There we go.
Yes. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We have some persons who would like to share their thoughts with us.
Okay.
Mr. Olabanji's hand has been up, and I'd like to give him the opportunity to speak now. So please, you have 30 seconds. Kindly wrap up your question within 30 seconds. All right, you have the floor now.
Okay. Is he there? I can't hear him. Barry, what's happening?
Looks like he's struggling to unmute himself. I've asked him to unmute. Let me see. Okay, since he's having a challenge, let's have Aminu Mohammed speak. Aminu Mohammed.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yes, go ahead. You can ask your question within 30 seconds, please. 30 seconds.
Name is NEOOO. Yes, I'm retired from National Water Resources Institute.
Hang on a minute.
Yes.
Let him finish speaking and then we'll go on. Yes.
I retired from National Water Resources Institute. I think the experience that I've found along the line is like the greatest problem is wrong recruitment of staff and wrong placement of staff. And as such, you find out that it is no matter what you bring, because a lot of people see the RUWASA as an agency where donors come in and things happen, especially when salaries are not being paid for many staff. So there is need to educate right from governor to legislator that the principal driver is the head of the RUWASA, and he must have technical competence and ability to mobilize and motivate people working under him. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was great.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Let me give Engineer Ali Jital from Bauchi State Water Corporation the opportunity to talk. So you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just want to bring to the fore an issue that might not have come up, but probably because of the name. We are talking of political will. And I think one of it also is the willingness of the relevant stakeholders to spend their political capital. And I think that is important. We are in a political era, and if the chief executive is not willing to spend his political capital, that also goes a long way in affecting whatever reforms it is that we have. The political capital is if a policy should stick out its stand by the reformers. Just as an example, when you want to charge an appropriate tariff and the political leadership is not willing to take up the shocks, because definitely it will reverberate and it will definitely go back to them. When it is not ready to spend the political capital by supporting you to charge appropriate tariff, definitely it's not going to help matters. As an example I have given, now you roll out a water rate that has been agreed to by even the governor himself. And when it starts generating a lot of debate, he will backtrack, or at least he will even make the scapegoat. So I just want to find out this one. Sorry that I was not able to be on board at the beginning of the program, but I think we need to also stress this, that the leadership that we should have the political capital as well to spend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. One more, Iberi, then we can go on. I know we had Aminu Mohammed before. Has he figured it out?
Aminu Mohammed, I think.
Yeah, I saw his hand up.
Yes, we have
So let him
Ahmed,
speak.
yes. I mean, just go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead and ask your question.
You have touched so many itching issues. At my state level, the government is doing well in the provision of water and sanitation, but the political will to establish water board and small town is the biggest issue. So if the whenever the federal government has
What is
tried
your
to reform.
state? Are you
Hello?
Kano? What is your state? Is it Kano?
No, it's Borno State.
Borno State, yeah.
Yes, Borno State. So my state government through the state ministry of water have been doing well in the provision of water supply and sanitation, but what we are lacking is the reform in the water sector. You see, whenever the federal government try to reform the federal ministry of water resources for introducing anything new in terms of water sector, it doesn't descend to the state level, because my state believe in letter writing. So anytime there's any new thing at the federal level, it has to be communicated to the state through letter. So now in my state we have Ministry of Water Resources and Rwasa. Now for long the federal Ministry of Water has been clamoring for the establishment of water board and small town in the states. My state, there's no political will to establish that. Not that there's no political will, but who will for the establishment? That is the biggest issue. So I believe if the Federal Ministry of Water Resources can send letter to the state through the governor, that one will happen at no cost. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aminu. We are going to quickly, Barry, I've got to let you come in so that you stop texting me. And then we can continue with the presentation. And then we're coming back again to finish off with discussions. So keep all your questions and all your discussions intact. We're coming back to bring it all in. We have, Barry, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So can you share about the training brochure really quick? You too, you have 30 seconds.
All right. Thank you so much, Ma, for that wonderful presentation. I just want to make a little presentation here about our training programs for this year. We have these training programs that we have for water utility staff members, and it covers different aspects of the wash sector, right? So I want to say something. Hello, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can
Your
you hear me?
30 seconds is finishing now.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have signed some of these training programs to the MDs of the various state water utilities, and we also want to use this opportunity to present them to us and invite us to participate in them. All right. There are different programs. I will be dropping the training brochure in the chat box. Different people, different organizations, you can just download them and look at the programs and look at the ones you would like to bring to your organization, and then probably could give us a call. Our phone numbers are in the brochure. There are programs that cover different aspects of the wash sector. We have programs on water utility, commercial services, performance management, leadership development, wash governance, project monitoring and evaluation, project management. All right. So you could look at them and see the ones that you would like to bring into your organization. We have very seasoned trainers that will do justice to each and every one of these courses. All right, so I'll be dropping it in the chat box. You can take a look at them and give us a call back later. And later we'll still be sending out probably the hard copies of this training brochure to the different state water utilities in the country. All right.
And Rwasa.
Yes, and Rwasa. Thank you about that, ma'am. All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. You took 1 minute, but that's okay. I forgive you. Anyway, so we're back to the presentation. So we want to quickly, where's my sharing my screen? I have lost it. See, I had it and then now it's lost. Is this the one? Addressing. Yes. Okay. I want to, usually when we are talking about lack of political will, and we are going to go into it in a little bit, there are many things that we come across. The reason why there is lack of political will, we all know because we've seen the impact, but I want to quickly just run through a laundry list of what I have found. There's social, political, and bureaucratic environment of operations and service delivery that doesn't allow the reforms to take hold. So you will hear governors telling you, I can, I think Aminu Guitar just, Engineer Guitar just talked about it. The governor will tell you, I can increase, the tariff now. After I told these people I'm bringing water for them, now you're telling me to go and tell them they have to pay more for the water. I can't increase the tariff, just give them water. And then you have some certain places in the north will say, well, water comes from God, and they refuse to see water as an economic good and all of that. So once you come to that juncture where there is what is needed and what is politically expedient, political expediency always wins. And then we know that the state water agencies, or even at the RWASA level, we talked about capacity already. You will hear things like, well, the water agency really can't do the work, and because they just don't know how to run a business. And for RWASA, like, well, we would do it, but we don't have the people that is needed to do the work. And at the state level, I tell you already that the budget is already overburdened and there's not enough money to make special allocations. And then they will tell you, well, we have bigger problems now. In fact, look at, I think in the last how many years, security has been our bigger problem. So we don't often hear them, you go to the states and they tell you how busy they are trying to tackle the security situation. And then they tell you the opposition is trying to undermine what they are trying to do, instead of using their informal political network to deal with the opposition so they can walk across the aisle, they will tell you that they are having issues with the opposition, or that they just don't have access to enough material resources. And that the staff or general population, they are not willing to change. The union will fight also if we say we should corporatize and then make and leave the water utility to become a corporation by itself. And one of the key issues that we've seen with the political will is that the funding community, or even at the federal level, they seem to be overreaching. They are the ones with the agenda. They are the ones with the money. They are the ones with the plan. They are the ones with the technical support. And so then it leaves the government, the state governments, very little room to wiggle. And they feel like they have to do anything that the funding community says, or the feds or the federal level says. Otherwise, they will get cut out. So then they come in with pretended agreements. So when it's time for them to step forward, they don't. And we talked a lot about, even though there's an agenda, the political actor is not knowledgeable or hasn't educated himself enough about what's happening in the sector enough to begin to achieve what they should be achieving. So there are many different ways that we can address the lack of political will. The first thing is to work, we are on the inside, so we have to work, it's like managing up, help them to develop an agenda. or for example, have development goals, sorry about that spelling, to have clear development goals as it relate to the wash sector. It means that we may have to educate them to see where, in terms of development, that, you know, the wash sector, if you develop it, can self-sustain by this means, and not just make the same promises to them, but have real facts by which we can show them that, you know, you need to have a wash agenda. Even while the political campaigns are going on, the CSOs can help us by showing up at these political campaigns and demanding for wash agendas. We need to shift, and we talked about this already, we need to shift how reform initiatives are originating outside the state, either from the federal level or from the funding community and all of that, to make it so that it is the state agenda that is being pursued, so that, you know, there's more ownership of the reforms. When there's more ownership from the state level, political will be easier to get. And whatever the reforms are, we need to be considerate about the environment where the reforms will take place. You know, there is the people's ability to pay for resources. There is the need for, you know, the government being the primary employer. We need to be watchful about, you know, availability of funds at the state level and all of that, so that when we build an initiative, that initiative is all inclusive, that is inclusive, and that it can thrive in the context where that reform initiative is going to take place. So in a place like in the North, where we have large numbers of unemployment and uneducated people who depend on almost all resources from the government has to be willing to bear the cost of services to these teeming populations, and to be able to then see where you can charge people for more services and where you have to give free services. It's not free services in a way that the thing then, you know, the cost of service delivery is left on the institution like the state water agency, but that the government is billed for this social, you know, as a part of the social services that the government is providing for these areas. The government must communicate to the general public what is the common good that can come from reforming for the initiatives. And for example, if the government is sinking or is supporting, or there are some agencies or some funders that are sinking boreholes in our rural areas, we want to make sure that the government is able to go in there and provide some communication, you know, to the general public about their responsibility to maintain the wells of the boreholes or the pumps, and making sure that the community takes ownership and not just leave it to the implementers to do it. The government must work within the system, you know, because it's the system that you made promises to. So use the system to make the change. If you've told the community we are going to bring water, and then we want to make sure that, you know, after 4 years, you still have water coming from this borehole, the government must be willing to use that community to maintain whatever is implanted there, to take ownership, to maintain it, to make sure there's continuity, even after that regime. There is a public will. The political will and the public will must work together for this thing for us to have sustainability. If the public will is different from the political will, they will sit there and wait for you to do whatever you are doing, so that when you go, they can be free of all these changes you are bringing. You know, changes like pay more for water, you know, or pick up your garbage, clean your gutters, and all of that. Each political actor must take responsibility to build his own knowledge about the WASH agenda and his role in it, and to compete and, you know, to contribute to the best of their capacity to do that. And each actor must take timely and appropriate action without prodding from the rest of the community. So in summary, what we've been talking about is that there is, there is a need to be an agenda. And the political will is built on the actors' commitment to deliver on the WASH services as contained in the agenda. And where there are issues of lack of political will, we have to work on the absence of the political will so that we can get results and to sustain the reforms. And that if we don't get the political will in place, and so such that the reforms are emanating from the incumbent political structures agenda, the funding or donor community or the feds are the only ones that are going to keep championing this change that we're all looking for, and it will not be sustained. Then whenever there's a change in government, then the funding community would be worried that they might lose the projects that they have invested in so heavily that may or may not be getting results at that point. So we want to make a shift from being driven that, the WASH agenda being driven solely by the funding or donor community or the federal government to at least at the very minimum, making it a 50-50, the incumbent political structures agenda in alignment with the funding or donor communities agenda. When we have this, then we can have sustainability. The only way that we can make sure that anything works in this whole political will matter is it is going to be based on what the political actors do, not what they are saying. There is too much rhetoric in the system. And so they must be walking the walk. And we have to be mindful that a results achievement and sustainability of any of the reforms that we're chasing, any projects that we're putting down, will only work when there is adequate political will. Well, we talked about that. So the closing discussion, I want to, for us to guide the closing discussion already, and so you can have questions or comments and stuff, and then we can sort of close out. What do you think has caused the diminished political will in Nigeria or in your state? We've spoken a lot about that. Who are the key political and public stakeholders in your state for the WASH that you're doing that might be impacting what you have? What is their viewpoint on WASH problems and solutions? Because if the viewpoint on the problems and solutions that are needed is what is going to drive the agenda that they will pursue. Do you know what they are? And the various views that, we have like 4 different groups and not even counting the CSOs and in the general public. How can we align all these views so that there is a common agenda for your state that can be pursued? So on that note, can we hear comments and all of that, and then we can close out? Berit, we have hands up.
Yes, I think Chief Emmanuel wants to ask a question and make an input. I'm guiding him on how to go about that.
Okay, can we get whoever else is up while you're getting Emmanuel to do that? Again, bear in mind, we're going to share the presentation. We're going to share the recording of this whole thing. So don't worry about if you didn't take good notes and all of that, okay?
Chief Emmanuel, you have the floor now.
Good afternoon. My observation is this. My recommendation is that whenever the funding partners are getting ready for any WASH program to be executed in any state.
Mm.
I strongly want to recommend that the aspect of implementation should be taken more seriously, and it should not be left to the states to implement. I wouldn't want to mention a state that I took part in terms of restructure OD activities for their water corporation. By the time we left, and we left it for them to implement, you find out that because of political interests, they set up so many layers of implementation committee, subcommittee, pro committee, anti-committee. By the time I looked at what we had recommended and what they were doing, I could see that it was a different thing entirely. It did not gel. Again, my observation is that most of water corporation staff were civil servants. And so when you want to corporatize and commercialize the water corporation, you find out that many of the people at the top in the water corporation, before the reform took place, they were not interested in staying again in the new corporation. So we've got to look at these kinds of implications our reform program will cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Excuse me.
Okay. We have Mrs. Agbero again. Agbero, are you facilitating?
Yes, Mrs. Agbero is trying to. Let me.
And we're waiting.
Okay, I've asked her to unmute herself.
Okay.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
You
you
have
for
30
your
seconds. 30 seconds.
Okay. Yes, thank you for your presentation. The only thing from our discussion this afternoon, I will also want to suggest that maybe from onset, when we are setting the agenda with the state governments, the CSO and NGOs should be involved. So that when these people, it will not be only the agency that will be pushing or reminding the government of their agenda that they strictly need to follow. The NGOs also, who also they talk to the grassroots, they will also be involved. Because let me also keep in this, politicians at any level, either local government level, state level, anything level, they are the same. So for us to achieve better, I think actually bringing in the NGO, the more they are into it, but involving them the more. Like the agenda you have mentioned, I think we can try that. Then let the NGO be involved in the agenda setting and the whole plan and program. So that when people can now hold government at any level, hold them accountable for any deviation from their promises. So that's the only thing I think maybe if we add that to it, it can strengthen probably the agenda of the implementation of any proposal or agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that input. The next person that would like to give the opportunity is Olabinji, Mr. Olabinji. Sorry, I think I mispronounced that name.
Oh my goodness, Ebere. We will expel you from Nigeria as well.
Please forgive me, sir. Right. All right, sir, you have the floor. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, sir. He's not coming forward. Maybe let's have
But you have
Tommy. I think he's still muted. Let's have Tommy speak. Tommy, you have the floor now.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the questions are not on the screen, so I can't see it all. I would have loved to answer all, I mean, each by one. But my take, if we look at China, their water is being run by state-owned enterprises. We can all do a fact check on this. Somebody was talking and said that because it's a civil servant, it is this. I'm not here to say for or against. But my take is, if we be it public service or private service, if we follow the rules and imbibe the culture of best practices, civil service or civil servants too can deliver, but it's the other case here in the country. I think one of the questions is what is the political gladiator saying or something? I can't remember vividly, but I will, if it can be shared again, I would love that.
Okay.
We need to share your screen again.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking to do now. Is it showing?
Go back to the previous slide, the slide before this one.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. What has caused decline political will for washing Nigeria? I would like to take us down the memory lane. Let's go back to the 60s, the 50s in Nigeria. I don't have fact to say it, but I can say that from what I heard is water services was rendered as a social service from the north to the south to the east and the west. Nobody was being made to pay. And I can say the service or the operations of the agencies were much better than what we have now. So how did we get into that? Are we going to say it's lack of political will? Are we going to say it is funding decline? We need to look into that. If you ask me sincerely, I will say it's not political will. Because if you look at our history, it has always been there that yes, you need to fund it. But the moment we try to transit from social to economic, without how will I say it? Without putting what needs to be in place, to me, that's what cost, or that is the bane of the problem we have facing in the water sector now. So who are the key political and public stakeholders in your states? WASH, okay. What is their viewpoint on WASH problem? Yeah, their viewpoint is the sector is a drain. So much funds is being committed in the past. You're asking us to commit so much funds, and well, very little people are getting these services. Because government's resources is, I mean, right now, Naira and Kobo is scarce and limited resources. Despite the challenges of COVID, falling oil prices, but people are saying we're not getting it. And more so, individual access to groundwater unchecked or unabated so is also a constraint. What can be done to align the various views? Well, I think most has been shared by Mrs. Doko, of political actors, and reach a shared commitment to the reform. Well, to me, I would say to achieve number 5, we all need to sit down on the table and advocacy, let everybody see what is, how did we get to where we are, then we'll learn from it and move forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we'll take Engineer Guitar. I saw his hand. So I can take this down?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, for me, I'm okay. I don't know if other people want it.
Okay. You have
yes, sir. Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yes, well done for this eloquently presented presentation. I just want to emphasize an issue that I have not seen it being given the needed prominence. When we have a sector, I think we do agree that we have different sector players. We have those that are in the oversight level, policy and oversight, and we have the service providers and we have the regulators. Now, if we are looking at a service provider who should be oversighted to be on the driver's seat of a reform, I think that could be a mistake on our part, because it is expected that the service provider is to be reformed. There could be some internal issues that it is the service provider that is expected to do, and that could be taken care of through performance contract agreement. So what I'm trying to say is we should engage with the sector leaders who are in charge of service provision, service oversight, sorry, who are in charge of oversight, to be on the driver's seat and see how to move the sector forward. And unfortunately, we have the challenge of high turnover there. But that should be institutionalized. There should be a kind of way to institutionalize the reforms at the level of the service, of the oversight, at the level of oversight, because they are the ones to say this is how the sector should look like. This is how we expect the service provider to behave or operate, and so on and so forth. So the engagement should be much, much more at the level of the oversight, who will make sure that they move the sector forward. I don't see the service provider being at the engine side. So the agencies, the relevant agencies, are to receive, let me put it in the civil service language, instructions on how to behave. Of course, we should be careful that they are given the necessary autonomy to be able to even implement what is expected of them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Engineer Guitar. We have Antipas here. Antipas, why are we not hearing your voice? We have Antipas. We have so many people, Engineer Sanusi, we see you, but we don't hear you. What's going on? So let's hear from Antipas and then hear from Engineer Sanusi, and then we can close. We're already 8 minutes over. Very, do you see Antipas?
I'm not seeing him. I can see him now. Let me ask him to.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh, there you are.
It's Antipas. Sorry, I've been quiet.
Yes.
This is wonderful. This is a
wonderful
presentation.
Hello.
This is a very, very, very wonderful presentation.
Hello?
And you have tried your best for a long time. We've been dealing with, you've been trying to see that the water utilities in Nigeria perform better than what they are. And to be very candid with you, I try to add so many people on this connection so that some of my staff in the board will be able to be informed, be well informed through this media. And a lot of them are telling me that, oh, they are so happy to be part of this. And so those, like you said, if you have you give us some of the soft copies, we will share it with our junior staff. We are into reforms now, so we need this kind of understanding of dealing with operations in water utility like this. So really appreciate this, and to be candid, my staff are also calling me and say that they are grateful for what they have said, they've had. Well done.
Thank you. All righty, so now we're waiting for Engineer Sanusi from Kano.
Okay, good morning.
Afternoon all.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, engineer.
Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
You are? Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon.
Yes.
I really appreciated to have a wonderful meeting, and I really enjoyed the meeting. And also I want the platform to conduct another meeting and also include our stakeholders, so that at least they should understand why we are doing this meeting and what do we need from them so that they can support the program, so that at the end we will achieve what we want to achieve, goal and objective of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On the calendar for the year, I think we have a day when we're bringing in the funders. So there's a day when we're bringing in all the funders on these conversations. You will hear about it. Thank you, but that's a great suggestion.
Okay.
Well, on that note, we're 11 minutes past our time, so we're going to close. Thank you so much for attending.
Hey, see my hand, so.
Thank you for the program. We really appreciate it.
A quick say, I beg. We need to invite in heavy people like governors, commissioners to attend these programs so that we have cooperation with them in future.
We are working on that too. And
Okay.
that is going to happen this year too.
Okay.
Yes.
It's all
the
right.
concept of watch ambassadors that is being practiced on the federal level, maybe we should of it, using influential people at the state level so that they will meet.
Okay, we will work on that one too. Barry, take notes, please.
Yeah, it's noted.
If you have any other suggestions, this is our community. If you have any other suggestions, we don't want all the ideas to come from us only. Any other suggestions, let us know.
Okay, I thought somebody was speaking. Mr. Antipas, you want to say something? Okay.
Yeah, Olabanji.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, Olabanji, you better let Ebere know how to pronounce your name. Whether you finish and then.
The name is just iPad that is there. Like I said, from Water Resources Institute, National Water Resources Institute. I'm retired now.
Okay.
This issue, for facilitation at the state level, I think we should look at it an influential thing. For example, at the federal level, we have Mrs. Okeke, Engineer Mrs. Okeke, who is facilitating, who is new to the system. Maybe we look at somebody influential at the state that can go around and the person have a kind of connection with both the political and the civil service. It will help a lot of things to get through.
Okay.
Not doing it for money, but is doing it for commitment. That's very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a great suggestion. Thank you. We have noted that. Well, thank you so much. We're going to have to close now. This was a very good discussion. Thank you for all your contributions. There were questions that we couldn't answer because of time. I am going to look at the questions before you send in the presentations. I'm going to maybe take 1 or 2 slides before you send the presentations and just put the questions there and see if I have answers to them. I will put those answers there. That works?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Yeah. Before we leave, we'll be sending the link to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel contains the videos of previous meetings.
Yeah, yes. And this one.
Yes, you can go there, watch them, like them, subscribe, and also share them with your staff and your contacts online. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for attending. We sign out. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, sir.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well done.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.